Welcome back to News Talk, and we're continuing our conversation with our senior political reporter, Scott Thuman, joining us from our Capitol Hill bureau. Scott, we want to turn our attention to the Democrats now in 2016, and Hillary Clinton continues her 2-to-1 lead over her nearest challenger, Bernie Sanders, in the latest polls. And in fact, you know, that 11-hour marathon debrief in front of the House Benghazi committee, that actually seemed to improve her standing with her core voters.
Yeah, well, I think that's because there wasn't some major flub. Now, the critics will say, yes, there were instances that we believe she wasn't telling the truth, where the emails shine light on something that she tried to distance herself from regarding security measures in Benghazi. So she's always going to be criticized for her role there, and they're going to say she didn't really fare that well. But after 11 hours, most people believe that she didn't have some sort of colossal fall off a cliff moment, and as a result, it was seen somewhat as a victory because she got out relatively unscathed. So what you're seeing now in this new poll, and it's the same poll that showed those new Trump and Carson numbers, where Carson is on top now, 29-23. What you're seeing is Hillary Clinton widening her lead over Bernie Sanders. It's 2-to-1 margin. It's 62 to 31% nationally. Martin O'Malley coming in at just 3%, so not a factor there. And yes, it seems that she is, because she got through what you might consider that Benghazi hurdle. The first debate, she fared well. Bernie Sanders kind of coming to her aid there, defending her on the email issue. And now it looks like she's got a much more clear path to move forward in a progressive way, and she can kind of coast a little bit. You know, you've got 13 months, so it would be crazy for us to act like this thing is remotely tied up. But it certainly seems that she has a much smoother road ahead of her.
I guess the big question is, can Benghazi still come back to haunt her? Could it derail her hopes for the presidency?
Yeah, Mel, it certainly can, because, look, you've still got an FBI DOJ investigation that's underway. They're looking to see if there is any wrongdoing. There are still emails that have yet to be released. You know, every few weeks we get one of these document dumps, we call it. It's usually a late Friday afternoon when the State Department puts online several hundreds, if not thousands, of emails that they have been required by a federal judge to release over time from her private server. So yes, there are still lingering concerns for her. Whether or not they will be skeletons in a closet that could actually ruin a campaign, yet to be seen. People don't necessarily think that there's something definitive there, but we're going to keep an eye on it. And if, for example, the FBI came out after doing this preliminary investigation and said that she had committed offenses that are actually illegal regarding confidential information and the sharing of those, then that could be a huge problem for her.
And there was one email in particular that's already surfaced having to do with her friend Cindy Blumenthal, and some of those conversations back and forth could be in that category you just mentioned. But I believe the email dump continues all the way through January, isn't that right?
It does, and I don't know if that's really to her disadvantage or not, because so far, once they put these things out there and everyone starts sorting through them, the teams of journalists that are reading through them, there's never been a headline that is so large that we've seen an actual effect or detriment to her campaign. But the trickle just keeps it in the news. I think that's unfortunate for her, and that's a hurdle that she needs to overcome. But for the most part, she's done very well. And of course, that's bolstered by the fact that she doesn't have an opponent other than Bernie Sanders who's challenging her.
That's right, especially after Vice President Biden decided not to jump in the race. So what does Hillary Clinton need to do now? You said she can kind of coast a little bit. How long can she coast before she really needs to get in there and get gritty with everybody?
Yeah, you know, she's doing all the things that you need to do as a candidate, spending time in Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina, continuing to amass fundraising, you know, every single time something pops up, regardless of the headline, whether it's positive or negative. She and her campaign send out an email that instantly says, hey, in light of what you just read or heard on the news, we need your support now more than ever. Donate as little as $1. It's that sort of incremental fundraising that all of the candidates, but especially Hillary Clinton, because she doesn't face some colossal opposition at the moment, is able to capitalize on between now and the election. So you keep building the coffers so that when you do have to really hit the ground in Iowa against someone one-on-one like a Bernie Sanders and it gets closer to January, you can spend a little bit more on advertising. You can pick and choose the venues. You don't have to do everything because you've already got a really big war chest. So for her, it's a relatively optimistic approach for the next couple of months, unless there is some horrible moment that evolves or emerges, or one of these emails come back to haunt her in a way that the entire nation starts to pay attention.
How much do you think that she should actually engage with all the Republican controversies, including the debate controversy of the last week? I mean, is this something that she should weigh in on with her tweets and her emails, or just kind of stay quiet for now?
I think that her strategy that we saw very early on, before she even really declared a candidacy, and everyone said, why hasn't she jumped in yet, was smart. Don't jump into the fray and suffer all the slings and arrows of other campaigns until you necessarily have to. So I think right now it's probably strategically wise for her to lay a little bit low, keep doing some of the glad handing you need to do, get out there, reach the grassroots efforts that have to be made in those important swing states, in the early states as well. But for the most part, there's no need to stick your head out there. Now, she will continue to attack Republicans when they do things that she feels gives her an ability to get a leg up in a general election sense. They're amassing constantly the sound bites from Republican candidates that they believe they can use against each other, and you will see these in advertisements once we start looking more toward a general election. For now, though, she doesn't have to do much other than raise funds, shake hands, get endorsements, and make sure that Bernie Sanders doesn't get any closer in the polls than he has.
You know, one thing she does seem to be focusing on, Scott, gun control as an issue, possibly for her campaign. She did release a new 30-second ad in Iowa and New Hampshire talking about gun control, more stringent gun policies. So we could see this emerge possibly as a signature issue for her in her general election campaign.
Absolutely, and she hit on that, you know, when she was here in Virginia a week ago Friday, and we were with her, and she spoke quite a bit about gun control. And she praised Governor McAuliffe for his efforts to prevent the carrying of guns into certain buildings all across the Commonwealth. So this is an issue that she feels safely she can campaign strong on, that she can fight on. She won't have to backtrack. She brags about the fact that she doesn't get any good ratings from the NRA, whereas her Republican counterparts do. So she will use this issue as much as she can, not just through primary season, but certainly in a general election. I think it'll be one of her biggest strong points. And then also she talked a lot about fair pay and equity, women's rights, the ability to get paid leave after having a child. All of those issues are ones that she doesn't need to stray from. She'll capitalize on those as much as possible.
You know, we talked about how Donald Trump is now down in the polls a little bit, but I guess we shouldn't count him out just yet. But it would be interesting to see. I think a lot of people would be interested to see a Hillary Clinton-Donald Trump debate matchup next year. What do you think?
Oh, I think you could sell tickets like Super Bowl prices on that one.
Right.
And look, Donald Trump today, he's got a new book out, and so today and yesterday, he, now being down in the polls a little bit, chose the opportunity, not surprisingly, to go ahead and attack other people like Ben Carson, saying he just doesn't have it in him, that he doesn't have the temperament for the job, saying that Marco Rubio's you know, he's just a flash in the pan kind of newcomer. He doesn't have the staying power, that Jeb Bush is overrated. So when he is pushed up just a little bit against the wall with these new ratings, he's firing back. And it's not just going to be Hillary Clinton, it's going to be the other Republican candidates, even though when they're on the stage, they like to at times try and defend each other and say they're using Reagan's 11th commandment. You know, that's all fine and good until you see that you're having some poll issues, and then you fire off pretty soundly.
I think the American public is beginning to kind of get used to those rather non-PC comments coming from the Donald. Well, thanks so much for being with us from our Capitol Hill Bureau. Scott Thuman, our senior political correspondent. And we're coming right back with more News Talk. Stick around for that.